the TezBake Baking with Consensus Key tutorial. So, you've been baking for a while, and you may have recently heard about the concept of a consensus key, or you're baking with a ledger, and maybe you heard that there is a way to make your ledger work faster with a faster derivation type, or you heard that perhaps you can gain more security by delegating the block signing responsibilities to a different key than your Baker management and voting key. Whatever the reason that you are here, make sure to understand that when you are baking with a consensus key, this is not perfect security and you don't have to protect your consensus key. The consensus key can potentially double bake or double endorse on your behalf. And it can also drain any unstaked funds into the consensus key. So protect the consensus key like it's your baking key. If you do choose to use a consensus key, it is highly recommended to regularly stake any unfrozen Tez. And when you plan on ceasing your baking, if that's what you choose to do, make sure to rotate your consensus key before you unstake all funds. So let's say that you have a fully working Baker with a TZ1 ledger. The TZ1 derivation path is the default derivation path on a Tezos baking ledger. It is either the ED25519 derivation or the BIP ED25519. If you are using the BIP one, that is even slower than ED, so you definitely want to use a consensus key to speed up the performance of your signing of your ledger. So in this case, I am using the ED25519 version of the TZ1 address, which is fairly quick, but it is not as quick as the P256 or TZ3 derivation type. And that's what we are going to use here. So your first step should be securing a second ledger and making sure that you don't use the same seed phrase as the original ledger. Even though you're going to be using two different addresses, you want to make sure that you have security all the way down to the seed phrase of your ledger. So make sure that this is completely independent ledger with its own seed and its own PIN. After that, install only the Ledger Baking app, and that's all you're going to need. Make sure that both ledgers are plugged in and that the baking app is open on your new ledger. At this point, make sure that your computer sees all the ledgers. Okay, good. Make sure you identify which ledger is which. And you can do that using the file system on TezBake. Actually, it is in a signer data. Here you can see that the ledger that I am baking with is this one. Furthermore, you can see the derivation type and the derivation path. Notice here that I'm using 0 and here I'm using 1001. By default, it is 0, but you can use any number that makes sense to you and you like. If you want to slightly improve the security of your setup, that's probably not going to hurt you to use different numbers, but do make sure to document those. So at this point, we are going to run the list ledgers command again. We're going to take the command here to import the consensus key. Here you can choose the alias for your consensus key. I like to use consensus, so it's descriptive. For the high watermark, setting 1 is fine because you are setting a new address that hasn't baked before. For the ledger ID, make sure to paste the ID that is new. Authorize it and set the derivation type P256. 00 is the default. I will use 1001 for the sake of consistency. On your ledger, on your consensus ledger, accept the import operation. Oh, what happened on the ledger just now is that it got locked out. So understandably, I have to enter the PIN again. And since I am baking with a virtual machine, I have to make sure that my ledger is mapped to said ledger. You can see the original was still mapped. The Nano S Plus is going to be back now. And let's try this again. It's going to ask you a few times. And after this, you have imported your new TZ3 address, which is a great start, but that's not all that needs to be done. If you see here on TezBake info, it'll not know anything about your consensus ledger other than it's connected, but it'll not automatically switch to baking with it quite yet. It'll just tell you whether the ledger is connected and properly detected or not. Now, after importing it, the next step is to modify your TezBake configuration. You have to add the additional key aliases argument right on the configuration area. So this is the main node, and you're going to be adding it anywhere in here, maybe after this or after something else. You have to add a comma after the last curly brace and then paste the value. As you can see here, this is the configuration node, and I'm going to go to this level, add a comma, tab, and paste the new configuration parameter, and then save the configuration file. At this point, you want to stop TezBake, run setup again, and then start it. When you run the setup, you want to select yes to merge your existing configuration and not wipe it. This way, you are not losing any kind of data or anything else. The configuration simply becomes effective on the services that are running your baker. It's going to download the node, client, signer, baker, and accuser once again. And I'm going to get ready for the next step. The next step is effectively getting the public key of your TZ3 public key hash. So the TZ3 and the TZ1 address, that's not your public key. This is a hashed version of your public key. So you have to get the actual plain old public key, which should be in the format that starts with P2P something something. So let's copy that command. Let's wait for the download to finish. Make sure to also accept the merge of your signer. Now I'm going to start TezBake again. And then I'm going to extract the public key of TZ3 hash. Like you can see here, the original hash is this. This is its public key. Consensus key hash is here, and the actual consensus key is here. Simplest way to set the consensus key is using the command line. But in my opinion, it's easier to go to TezGov and do it there. I will show you how to do it on TezGov, but if you're going to do it this way, make sure that you have the wallet app open on your original key in order to be able to set this. And then you have to set it back to the baking app so you can continue baking uninterrupted. Because of the disruptive nature of this, I prefer to use your spare ledger that you use for voting and for transferring funds and simply open up a browser. And in my case, since I am baking on a virtual machine, I have to quickly deselect the ledger from being connected to the virtual machine, then confirm that's the case. And after that, I have to log into the ledger again with my PIN. Here, I'm going to open the Ledger app, the Ledger Wallet app. And then after having the app open, I will click Ledger, use a custom derivation path. And as you recall, it was 1001 here, and it was the ED25519. The Ledger is going to ask me if I approve this connection, and I will be able to go to Baker Management, to Consensus Key, and I will update the consensus key. I'll grab the key here without the quotes, copy it, and paste it into here. The ledger will ask me to approve this. And if the ledger is not letting you confirm this, you have to go into the settings of the wallet app and enable expert mode. We open the Explorer. It'll confirm that the baker has updated the consensus key. And here you will see the same thing. And after 2 cycles, your consensus key is going to automatically take over your baking from your other key. And the reason why this method is the best method, in my opinion, is because the transition between the first baker key and the consensus key is going to be seamless. After the transition completes, you can at that point unplug the baker key and it's going to say error, but that's fine. You can also set up TezBake over again and overwrite the configuration to only have the baker key added as the consensus key. But most people prefer to have it in this state because it enables you to revert back and not have to change any configurational parameters. And you will know that this error is occurring because you are no longer baking with this key. If you want to further confirm which key you're baking with, you can go to TezBake. You can go to. You can use the TezBake signer log, and here, when you are injecting attestations and when you are crafting blocks, it'll say which device you're using to sign them with. When you confirm that it's using the new one, at that point, you can unplug the old baking ledger and you can either repurpose it for something else if you have a second spare ledger with the same address, or you can use the consensus key as your spare ledger and then use your original ledger in order to make transfers or to vote, but not to bake anymore. And you can always go to this website and either rotate the consensus key to another one or rotate the original key back in place. Again, if you cease baking, or if you want to unstake your whole balance at some point in order to move funds around, I recommend always doing an additional consensus key rotation just to make sure that if somebody has compromised your consensus key, they don't have the ability to see that your balance has been unfrozen and transfer it out using the drain operation before you have a chance to do it yourself. If you have any questions or comments for us, we're here to help on Discord and Telegram. Thank you and have a good day.